And let's proceed with other reports with คุณเทพชัยยอง and คุณนัทบุญนาค
Today is another day that Thai people have become as one.
And today is October 13th, which marks 4 years since the passing of late King Bhumibol the Great, who is much revered by the Thai people. As for today, many Thais across the country wore yellow to honor the great king. And throughout the day, there were also special activities to commemorate the occasion. Notably, at Sirirat Hospital, vigils were held in remembrance of the late king. And elsewhere, religious ceremonies were also held to mark the occasion. Thai PBS World joins the Thai people in remembering the great king and his contribution to the country. The date chosen for the anti-government rally, which is October 14th, and is also tomorrow, carries a strong political symbolism. And there is no doubt that the protest organizers want the rally to coincide with the historical date to reinforce their drive for political changes. October 14th marks the 47th anniversary of Thailand's first popular uprising that led to the ouster of the authoritarian government of Prime Minister Thanom Kittikachorn. It also brought in a new dawn of democracy, and along with it, years of political turbulence. Thailand then was under a dictatorial rule presided over by military strongmen Field Marshal Thanom and his clique that came to be known as the Three Tyrants, and which also included his son Norong Kittikachorn. Thanom had staged a coup against his own government earlier in 1971 in order to attain absolute power. But his reign was marked by widespread corruption and nepotism that gave rise to widening public discontent. As student activists began agitating against the Thanom government, a seemingly unrelated incident helped turn the tide against the ruling clique. An army helicopter crashed in a national wildlife sanctuary. The government's claim that the helicopter was on a secret mission was quickly quashed by the discovery of wildlife carcasses on board. It was later established that the helicopter was being used by a hunting party that had nothing to do with any official mission. The incident further fueled the already simmering public anger against the Thanom regime. The anti-Thanom government protests escalated in October 1973, with student activists demanding a new constitution. The protests quickly gained popular support. It was estimated that at its peak, the number of people taking part in the protests swelled up to hundreds of thousands, something unprecedented at the time. The Thanom government responded with brute force. Protesters, mostly students and young people, were mowed down as they confronted the heavily armed security forces on October 14th on Ratchadamnon Avenue. Hundreds of fright-stricken student protesters being hunted down by authorities sought refuge inside the Jitlada Palace, where His Majesty King Bhumibol and members of the royal family came out to comfort them. The same night, His Majesty King Bhumibol called for calm in a television address and described October 14th as a day of great tragedy. His appearance immediately brought an end to the violence on the streets. The next day, Prime Minister Thanom, his son Norong, and Deputy Prime Minister Prapat Charusathian resigned and fled the country. His Majesty King Bhumibol appointed Privy Councillor Sanya Thamasak as the new Prime Minister. According to official accounts, as many as 77 people died and 857 were injured in the bloody uprising. All casualties were civilians. The uprising ushered in a new era of democracy. But it also plunged Thailand into one of its most turbulent political periods that culminated in a brutal suppression of the student movement and a military coup d'etat 3 years later.
And that's all from Thai PBS World tonight. Thank you very much for watching.